welcome to Shop Talks, which is a production of the In Kitchen. You can check out information at inkitchen.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is all free. We have 199 videos up there and counting. This one will eventually be there as well. Everything from how to stop dye migration to the future of garment decoration, and everything in between. So we're here because of impressions as well, and all the sponsors you see on either side here. Give a little pitch here. We printed these posters live in the area between here and the main hall, and they're for sale, and they go to a really great homeless program here in Long Beach. If you've been here more than 2 minutes, you've seen the extent of the problem. There's 4,000 homeless people in Long Beach, and this program that we're giving the money to is super low overhead, doing great work. If you want to talk to me about it afterwards, you can do that too. All right, I have Brian Lassard from Made Lab. Used to work together, still do on some projects. My friend Tony Palmer, who's come from the UK just for this talk, I think. Yeah.
Just this.
He does consulting. Is it called Palm Print? Both Brian and Tony have traveled the world and have quite the perspective that many of us are not able to have of seeing a variety of shops. And they both have run real production and know what they're doing. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
I never said that. Did you say that? I never said that.
Printing some of the best prints that you've ever seen, and if you don't believe me, I'll show you afterwards. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what kind of things go into fast setup, and maybe I'll even mention that fast setup, if you're worried about how fast your machine goes, don't. They all go pretty damn fast, and you're really, with very few exceptions, your money's going to be made or lost in the setup. You guys want to give a few tips or maybe even a philosophy in general of what goes into setup that will help with faster setups?
I think you're right in that
Eat the mic.
The machines have got a lot faster. They've become faster than loader, FTL. They've reached the peak of what we can physically do and keep the quality high. So there's no point going any faster. The only thing to try and improve is the dead time.
Faster. No.
Yeah, it's just the dead time. Cut down the dead time, and it automatically goes faster. So the philosophy, which is really simple and it's not a secret, it's basically preparation, preparation, preparation. If you fail to prepare to fail.
Yeah, I would say the other thing too is across the board in general is the window of success. Like giving yourself a huge window. I mean, if it's like your emulsion, make sure you don't have something that it works. As long as I do X, Y, and Z, I mean, it should work. Like even if someone screws up, it's not so bad. You know, and that goes with even your quality. If you can't achieve a perfect quality, you have to know where to accept it and not struggle all day. You spend half the day trying to get it perfect when no one can really get it perfect. So you're just being realistic and opening up that window. So you at least be consistent, you know.
That's from a perfectionist telling you that. So
it's a tough one for me. I joke when I worked with Rick, we had a joke when I was running upstairs to the art department to get things re-separated, the other guy was printing it. He knew when to quit. He knew I could make it better, but we just kept fighting in between.
Commercially acceptable. Horrible phrase.
No, actually, the most valuable person in your shop is the person that knows when it's good enough. When the customer will not send it back, and when they know to stop fussing around and losing your money. And that is a very valuable person, and AI isn't going to replace that anytime soon, I don't think.
And it's also important, though, to have someone that can get it close to perfect. If you don't have that person, then it's trouble.
Anything else that goes... So I kind of knew you were going to say preparation without asking. So what kind of things go into preparation that are like essential for quick setup?
For the actual setup itself, it's got to be trying to reduce as many variables as possible. So that is trying to get the pre-registration system absolutely nailed, down to absolute perfection. The more time you can spend, if you spend an extra 2 minutes per screen making sure that the position of the screen is exactly the same on every single one, you're going to save an hour when it comes to press trying to get rid of a twist.
Yeah, I also think just getting everything ready ahead of time. You go into so many shops, they're ready to set up now, and they can't find the red. Someone's going to go find it, or someone didn't. If you even swatching the inks in the ink room, checking them to the Pantone, making sure your screens are there in order, the shirts are there, everything's ready to go. Because otherwise, you mess that up, and then you got to bring in the next job. That's gone. You're going to lose an hour right there, and that happens a lot.
Yeah. So you mentioned an error. What? I mean, you've been in a lot of shops. What is the most common things you see that are stopping fast setup?
I think, like I just said there, not everything being in the right place at the right time. Looking around for stuff. You know, the shop cart, the humble shop cart, saves so much time. If you can turn around and your shirts, your inks, and your screens are all in one location, they're checked, they're ready to go, that's going to save you maybe 20, 30 minutes looking for things, asking questions. If you're asking the same question every day, like, is this approved? Is this ready to go? Is this stock here? Then your system, your information system in the background is wrong. If you keep asking the same question, your information system that goes through the shop, that should answer any questions.
That's it. That's funny about the approval. So Brian and I did consulting in Poland, and they wanted us to train the employees because they thought they were stupid, really, actually. Well, in fact, they had very, very good printers, and the problem was in the office, that they would have to go and get approval, and someone would be on the phone, and they would wait, and the whole crew started to, they wouldn't even think about doing it in a hurry, because why be in a hurry and then wait for an hour? So approval is, I think, a huge thing, and pre-approval from the customer that the colors and the position and everything are correct, right?
Yeah, we've got fantastic digital systems now that will allow us to zoom into artwork. We can see all the colors, all the Pantones are listed, the position and the drop is all written down. And if that information's there, we like pictures. As printers, we like pictures. Give us a picture of what it should look like with the Pantones on it, with the position on it, and we don't have to ask anybody anything because we should be trusted enough to run the job from a visual proof.
I think mentality is also part of it, is it not? Of like, I know I've been in some shops where it's like, oh, we finished the job, we're going to go have a smoke and eat a Twinkie or whatever. And in fact, that seems like the critical point where you really need to rush to get things off and on. I don't know, you see that at all? Or
I do see it. It's again, it is like a preparation. I know that's a cliche, but
a race car, people say it should be like.
I say it's like a dance. You know, there's usually 3 people on a press, and when it stops, they look at each other and go, "What do we do now?" So no, you work that way. I work this way. The guy at the end of the dryer is going to come up and help us with the new stuff, and it's a well orchestrated dance because it's the same task we perform at the end of every run. We take out the screens, we take out the squeegees, we change the stock. It is the same thing. So if we plan beforehand, okay, what are you going to do? I'm going to work that way, you work that way, and we'll meet in the middle. And for me, that communication beforehand as to what we're going to do, rather than pressing stop and going, now what?
Yeah, I think it's expectations, too, of how long a setup should be. I mean, in some shops, it's like, yeah, we set up at 2 hours. They think that's good. They don't really have a perspective. But some of the one large shop that was, over 20 automatics, really efficient. What they used to have is as soon as a press would set up, they would have a pod move in, and the light would be on. And as soon as 15 minutes hit, the light would turn red, and then the most experienced person would go to that press, figure it out, and get it running. But there was just a sense of emergency every time there was a setup, which is the mentality.
There weren't like electric dog collars or anything on the
Little
workers'
shock collars. Oh, that was 20 minutes. The shock.
15 minutes was the red light, 20 was the shock collars.
Yeah, it got worse after that.
What other tips about getting going and mentality do you think?
I think a big one is a lot of the times it usually comes down from the top, the set rules of we don't double stroke, we don't send it around twice, we don't do everything, so people follow this mentality. And I was in a shop one time and they were setting up for as little as it had to be about 16 pieces run. Everything was small. They set up for about an hour, and then they ran really fast and wrecked half the shirts and started over again. And it was a really simple print. So I asked, why didn't you just send it around twice? It may have been a white flash white. And they said, we're not allowed to do that. Where they could have been done in 10 minutes, it took them an hour, and they wrecked half the shirts. Then they're waiting for more shirts. So it turned into a 2-hour project for 16 shirts instead of just sending around twice. So sometimes you just have to think of every job a bit differently, and that's the preparation too.
Well, I've seen the other places that should be told to they can't double hit, right? People with long runs, and they just do that without trying to figure out how to do it with
Yeah,
a
there's
single
got to be
hit.
someone there that their main focus is, especially big runs where you're doing, a decent amount, over 500. Someone's making sure that press, you keep getting every little bit of speed out of it, especially like hot market printing. You have to do that. So
I think the other mentality I've seen is where you get like the crafts person on the press that's going to fix everything. Like, see, I don't know. My mentality is more like you should print the same way all the time as much as possible with as few variables as possible, and the changes are made with either different meshes or different artwork. And I see a lot of places just do the art, and the press operators are meant to do it. I remember going to one place, and there was like no ink on the carpet of the art room, and there was no art people down on the floor, and that's just like, I don't think this is a good idea, right?
That's right, yeah. There has to be that mentality. You have to trust your operators to do a good job. That, in my opinion, you have to trust them.
But the brilliance has to be in the art room, not in the crazy way that you are going to print with some kind of magic technique. I don't know. Maybe you're a printer. And
I'm
you
a screen
that.
printer. It's always the art room's fault.
Brian, what do you think?
yeah, you see a lot of stuff going on. People in the art department just think they'll fix it on press, and it has that mentality instead of making sure everything's perfect. And the other problem too is the art department that doesn't have a lot of screen print experience. They're picking the print order, and they're kind of doing what they think might be right. And then the printers just think the art department knows better, so they follow that, and there's no communication in between.
Oh, the mesh
you must
count.
need that middle person to communicate in between.
All right, maybe we'll open this to questions. Other comments first?
No, I other than invest in equipment before the press, this is my biggest thing. People want to get the bigger press, the faster press, but they're still using film and positioning by eye. If you invest before the press, the pre-press equipment, for me that makes the whole job pass through the department faster. So for me, it's the investment in pre-press equipment that's going to cut down time on press.
It's funny you say that. When anybody wants to save $5 on a bucket of emulsion, that's not as good as the other bucket. I'm like, you're out of your freaking mind, right? It's like the press time is the most valuable time you have in your shop, right?
I'd say if you're losing money on screens, get out of the game. If it's costing you, if that's where you think you're losing money by making screens, you're doing something else wrong.
I was in a shop with 20 automatics, and they had, I'd swear, a $500 screen stretcher and making their own screens. That just seemed like really not the greatest idea. The owner didn't like it when I told him that, but
No, and I see other people spend all that money on the pre-press, everything. They've got a $150,000 machine, and they've got old squeegees that they can't print with. And they refuse to replace them because squeegee rubber is expensive.
all right. Any questions? You got some experts here, I'm telling you, and a rare chance to ask them questions. Who's got a question about setup? Hell, it's almost over show. You can ask us about anything. You're all set up really fast. That's awesome.
All I'll say, the fastest setup I've seen was where labor was cheaper. So we doubled everything. Double squeegees, double flood bars, double coats, and a cleanup team of 3 people come in and swap out dirty squeegees for clean squeegees and clean off press while the next job's running. And I'd love to be able to do that, but the cost of labor is so high. But even investing in double squeegees, so twice as many as you need, so that someone can be cleaning while you're running, that's also an extra way to get a faster start time.
Well, all right, ask and I'll repeat the question.
So do you guys have dedicated times at the end of the day or at the end of the day where you just get everything together to set up?
So the question is, do you have believe in a dedicated time of day where at the end of the day where you get everything together to set up? I guess what size shop that would be the big question. Like a small shop or a big one? Small shop.
I would say definitely the end of the day, you're looking at tomorrow's schedule. So to make sure, the worst thing is you go into every shop first thing in the morning and everyone's walking around. What are we going to do? You know, Joe's not here yet, you know, and no one knows what they're doing. Like first thing in the morning, at least the first 2 hours should be like completely set up, ready to go. Then you can meet in the morning and kind of figure out the day, because in screen printing, you know, every day changes too.
And I would have somebody there that turns the dryer on and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
that's what they-
Otherwise, everybody's going to be, you know, out doing who knows what, but not printing. If there's not shirts coming off the belt, you are losing money. Everything else is extraneous. Some of those extraneous things lead to more shirts coming down the belt, and some don't, and you have to figure those out.
I went the other way and did an experiment in a small shop where every day was spent trying to prepare for the same day. So we said, right, okay, Monday you're not printing. Don't turn the press on, don't turn the dryer on. We know what we need to do all week. So Monday is prep day. And just by doing one day and closing the press down for one day, we increased production by 25%. Because we did all the preparation on the dead day. Nobody was running around, everything was ready. So on Tuesday, we came in early, turned the press on, and nothing stopped because we checked everything before we got to the production.
And that everything is everything from the screens to making sure you have the right ink to having the right person there that's going to approve it, or that the person that you're going to take a picture of and send it to is going to be there. I mean, I think that the approval that Tony mentioned earlier is very, very important. Who is going to approve it and when and how? You print something on a day that your customer is on vacation, you're screwed. Ron, you got a question? Come on.
Still printing on a manual, planning to get an automatic. What should I be focusing on now? Like you mentioned, your pre-press equipment or tasks, so that when I get the automatic, I'm just, you know, better prepared.
To go from manual to automatic, for me, it still does start in the screen room. We've got lots and lots of variables when we print, and sometimes we think it's us. We think we're shit because it worked today, but it didn't work tomorrow. Because we're printing the same ink through the same mesh and everything's the same except the design changed. So why does it work on a Monday and not on a Tuesday? And what we didn't realize is we were crap at coating last week because we were tired and we didn't do it. And now that screen has a really thick stencil. But the screen we're using today has a really thin stencil. But because we don't monitor it and because it's been done by a human, we think it's on press. So for me, one of the first things that I do with an auto would be to get an auto coater in the screen room and reduce one of the variables. Then print loads of shirts to pay for the next thing.
No, and if you don't have an auto coder, at least have a consistent person does it and a way to hold the screen that's consistent, because that's a very hard thing to check out. So you kind of got to focus on your method, if you will. And then I think a very, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, a big problem in a lot of shops is the lack of climate control in the screen room. And you cannot measure these things yourself, like, oh, it feels damp. You need to have something on the wall that tells you the humidity of the room. It should be, depending on the emulsion, something like 35 to 55%. Don't want it too dry, don't want it too wet. Too wet's definitely a problem. You either have to get dehumidifiers or air conditioner, and there's no short circuit. And a fan alone will just blow the humidity around. And so how you dry your screens, how dry your screen room is. And then where you store them, because screens can reabsorb, emulsion can reabsorb water.
That's why a drying closet is a good option if you can't control the whole room. At least you know every time you coat a screen, put in there, it's 1-2 hours, depending on the emulsion, you know it's dry if that temperature is set. Where a room, you know, it could be all over the place.
And we could have a separate session, and we will, about going from manual to automatic. And I just urge you to check out all the changes you might have to make. Where if you go faster, you got to make screens faster. If you need larger screens, a lot of different things. It's not just the automatic itself.
Inks too. I mean, if you're using a manual press, you may be using more opaque inks. It can go direct to fabric. When you go to an auto, you're going to want inks that'll print wet on wet. So you kind of rethink the inks you're using to make sure that they're suitable for what you're doing. Because with the auto, everything's on an underbase because you don't want to send things around twice. So everything needs to be a little less opaque because it's going on an underbase.
That good? All right. Other
Okay,
questions?
I have the question over here. We're having a problem with the manual setup press that does the samples for the automatic production presses that actually will do the production. And then when we want to match what we did on the manual on the automatic, it's time consuming.
All right,
and then the registration, it's a double question. Because so I wanted to know what would be the most efficient system out in the market press-wise as precise, quick registrations of 10 or more colors.
All right, I will answer it first. We don't do that. We found it was never the same, and we just managed to sample on automatic and work around that with doing it. Maybe someone stays late, so you don't cut into production, whatever. We never could master it, and I think I'm not alone in that, but maybe you guys have answers.
No, I fully agree. And one of the main reasons is the human element. If you have a guy or a girl pulling a manual sample print for you and they make an error, they'll double hit it to make it look good, but they'll never admit that. Because the worst thing they can do is submit a bad sample or a badly printed sample. So they've got the chance on press to make it look good by hitting it again, flashing it again, sending it round. When you ask the question, "Oh, yellow's beautiful. Did you hit it twice?" No. Then you get to automatic and you do that exactly as she's written it down, which was one stroke, and yours looks bad. And then becomes the long fight between, did someone cheat? I can never achieve that. We need to make the screen again. It's always the art room's fault. So we need to look back at it. So I'm in full agreement with Rick. Sample on an auto. Sample the print the way it's going to be produced.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, aside from I would do it a lot of times just to swatch colors to make sure the colors were right, to get that approved, but it's always going to be different. I mean, if you have the ability, the large shops often have like one dedicated sample machine that's an auto that just does sampling all day long, but that's tricky.
Yeah,
or you can have
otherwise-
someone stay at night, something like that, to get it done.
You know, I find actually better to do a DTG sample. You know, like just at least it's for size and things like that. We have one stupid customer that we would print it. They would see a mock-up and then they're like, it's too big. Yeah, it's 10 colors, and then we'd make them pay to reduce the size or something. So that you can get through that with a DTG printer. I find a lot of screen printers found DTG as helping their screen printing that way. If you need samples that you're going to produce later, I don't know. Manual printing stinks. You know, like many things in life that you do by hand are have a beauty to them. Manual printing does not. Manual printing, you are trying to print like a machine if you're a good manual printer. So better to get a machine.
Yeah, setting up on the auto also gives you the ability to test the print order, which is going to save a lot of time on your setup too.
I'm sure you have a reason why all of this doesn't work, but sorry.
These are smaller shops. They really can't afford to have an automatic press for a sample, but I understand the answer, and thank you. So
Stay late. Really pay someone to stay late.
what machine has the most efficient and better setup times?
You mean the guy next to you, machine? That guy?
Well, I mean, you need a manual press with a lot of heads, but I mean, I used to sample on a manual press all the time because I screen printed a lot. So if you're going to do that, the best way to do it is have somebody print something on the auto, and then they sample it and match it. So they can sort of adjust their technique to match what the auto does, and then you could possibly do it. But you'd have to do it in that order to get somebody trained to understand, so they're not just laying down more white than you could with one. If you're only going to do one pass on the auto, they have to learn how to achieve that on the manual, which I was able to do. I did a ton of sampling, because especially with like all the special effects things, yeah, we had to. But I sort of understood the limitations of the auto in how far it could go when I was sampling, to not make everyone hate me, you know.
Yeah. It's a real skill. But the other sort of like way to look at it is train your customer not to expect the same from a sample. The DTG example is a fantastic example. I know lots and lots of customers. The pandemic kicked it off when no one could physically approve anything. Had to be physically approved by a photo sent over the internet. And a DTG sample, which gave you the sort of like the look and the feel and how it would be on the shirt, was a perfect way to just take a picture. And then when the customer gets the actual production, he says, "Oh, the red looks a little light." Yeah, it must have been the photo.
I will say one other thing about samples. Give them one sample. Do not give them a choice. That's a mistake I made early on. You know, because inevitably they will pick two things that are mutually exclusive on the sample. And we want the red apple redder, and we want the red that's in the halftone of the face to be lighter. And like, you can't do it. And so give them your best shot, and that's it. You got a question here, brother?
And more my school mate to say, if you can win, I'm selling to flying target.
All right, so how do you keep HSA and water base? Any tips on it not drying in the stencil?
Where you live?
During
No.
the printing or during the setup you're talking about? You mean? That would be another shop talk, I'd say, but we'll say
Yeah,
a few
just
things.
protect the stencil. I mean, anytime you stop for a minute, print it through, clean the screen. I mean, you're just protecting the screens throughout the whole run. And the inks do matter. Some inks re-wet better, so even if they dry, you can print them through. And then there's misters on the heads, which can also help. If you can't control your shop, the misters do help a lot. And just always spraying with a spray bottle. But it's a two-person thing. You're just always walking around. Just someone's got to make sure those stencils don't dry out, because then you're reshooting.
And actually, what they started the whole session with talking about preparation. Everything's got to be set so you don't have to stop. You know, then it becomes even more critical.
Don't put inks until you're ready. You kind of get everything set up, then you just go all at once.
There's also a balance, I think, between the retarders that you can put in and the curing. So it depends what kind of dryer you have. If you're talking about making investments, get a better dryer. If you're printing water-based, so that you can add more retarder and it'll still cure.
For
Right?
me, the HSA, especially in a hot country, for me, the secret's in the flood. Good, thick, heavy flood. If you can see the stencil when it's flooded, it's going to dry in. When it floods, you don't want to see the stencil.
Yeah. All right. Another question, or was that helpful? You know, a lot of things about good printing, there are no secrets. It's really, really hard work, actually. So easier said than done, all those things we just suggested. Easier said than done, right? Other questions about setup or printing? These guys charge a lot of money normally. You got them for free here. Come on.
You didn't pay it.
Well, they don't think it's a lot. Seriously, any other questions? Good standard for setup time. Fast.
Yeah, it all depends on the number of colors, and but I mean, my setup, if it's a standard job, it's like no more than a half an hour. I'm shooting for 15 to 20 minutes. You know, if you have 3 people, and that's when it comes to organized. One person, the inks are there, everything's there. One person's registering, the other 2 are following around with squeegees, putting ink in. I mean, I've gone to so many shops where one person's registering, the other person's just standing there waiting, you know, for something to happen, and they're not working together. It is a pit crew when you see a good shop of how fast you can get it going. And then it's like the registration, having somebody that can get it in quickly, because my pet peeve and the thing I hated most is when you're wondering why a job isn't running and you look at the press and there's 3 people hovered over the pallet. You know, they're all looking at the print. You're like, what are you guys talking about? Like, what else could be happening here? Like, someone needs to register it, just print another one, register it, and they just take forever. And that's just finding quick ways to register a press is huge.
I agree. Registration by committee does not work.
No.
But it's a matter of, again, I had a customer ask me the same thing and said, why is it taking my guys 2 hours to set up these jobs? They're only 3 colors. It's just unacceptable. I'm never going to make any money. So I sat and watched them. They didn't even have rags or cleaning solvent or a table to clean the squeegees on. They were on the floor scrubbing with old T-shirts that they had to go and find and cut up. So it wasn't that they were taking a long time. It's just that nothing was provided for them to clean squeegees. And at the end of every job, without exception, we clean the squeegees. So if we don't provide a space to set up a process to clean, then it's on us. You know, we must provide everything that they're going to need.
And we did not touch on equipment maintenance. You know, I think I've been in a lot of shops where, why are you doing this? Oh, because this doesn't work. Did you tell anyone? Oh, no, we couldn't stop. Like, being in a hurry isn't always a good way to go fast. So, you know, if your pallets aren't level, if you're, you got play in your registration, if all kinds of mechanical things don't work, then that's going to hold you up over and over again. I'll admit it, in my shop once, they were printing a large job, and they were like putting a scrap shirt on a pallet. Like, what is going on? Oh, yeah, it has a dent in it. You gonna tell me? Like, you're gonna do this for a few years? Like, we'll get just 10% less prints on this press? It can drive you crazy. So somebody has to make sure that those things are in line and that people report the errors. Now we have a board that any kind of issue is written on and what happens with it, for example.
Yeah, with that I would add too, going back to the preparation. I mean, I've been in some shops where the machines are not great at registration. They're always a little off, so the people say it's the best we can do. In that case, then you go to the art department and they say, yeah, we don't choke the underbase because that's how professionals print, or this or that. So it's like, depending on your equipment, like you may say, like, what a standard choke by one really good company may not work for you. So if your machine's out of registration, you may need a 1-point or even a 2-point choke, whatever you're willing to accept to not have white peeking out. So you've got to kind of adjust your whole setup based on your equipment. I mean, ideally you'd have a machine that's in perfect registration, but you know, I've had some that aren't, or manually printing, I'll put a much bigger choke on than I would on an auto.
Better to solve it in the art room every time.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's every aspect.
Yeah, a little color poking over the edge is way better than seeing white. You know.
Other questions, or are we good? All right, you guys can hang out for a couple minutes. And then, Tony,
Yeah,
you
no
got to go
problem.
back to your booth, or you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll hang out for a couple minutes for shy people to ask questions, or if you just thought of one. Thank you for coming. How about a hand for Tony and Brian?